Hey, welcome back to Mississippi Stories. I'm your host, Marshall Ramsey, editor-at-large at Mississippi Today. If you hadn't checked us out at MississippiToday.org, do it. We got some great coverage, all kinds of good state coverage as well. And of course, you can see my cartoons, but if you want to go do that sort of thing. I'm really excited about our guest today. She's the executive director of the Mississippi Arts Commission. We've got Sarah Story with us. She is coming back to Mississippi. She'd been away for a while. She ran away to New Orleans and to Austin, but she's back here with us. She joined the Mississippi Arts Commission in November of 2020. She leads that state agency to its mission to be a catalyst for the arts and creativity in Mississippi, which they do very well. She spent much of her career in the museum administration business, where she previously served as the executive director of the UMLAUF Sculpture Garden Museum in Austin, Texas, which, by the way, Charles Umlauf is incredible. I love his work. So that had to be a lot of fun. And living in Austin's kind of cool too, except for the traffic.
All right.
The traffic's all right. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, before she went to Texas, she was in New Orleans as well. It was the Ogden Museum of Art. You were there, 2015 to 2018, right?
2012 to 2018.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You held a couple different jobs down there. So
that's right.
Yeah. So they liked you well enough to keep you around for a while. So that's good. You got a BFA in painting from the University of Mississippi. You were also in the Sally Barksdale Honors College. What was your thesis that you did?
So because I was a BFA painting major, I did my painting thesis as my honors college thesis, and then just added more research and context to my writing portion of my painting thesis for the honors college. So it was actually very rewarding and gave me the opportunity to just deeper explore the narrative of what I was doing visually.
And you got to kill two birds with one stone too.
Exactly.
Which is kind of cool also.
Yeah.
What kind of painting do you like to do? I mean, acrylics, watercolor, what's your thing?
So at that time, I was really focused more in oil painting, and that is my favorite medium.
Yeah.
Right now, just due to time constraints, I am a watercolorist. So I do that as a little side hustle and side projects.
Nice. Well, I'm about to say, you talk about time constraints. Anybody who paints with oils in the South, you can't be in a hurry because it takes a long time for oil paint to dry in humidity.
Exactly. You have to have a lot of patience and time, and your schedule is controlled sometimes by the paint and not by your own schedule. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like having children, basically. You don't have to put them through college. Now, I have to admit, I'm an acrylics guy myself, just because, I can paint over my mistakes, which you can't do with watercolors. That's already I'm admiring you as a guest, because you can do things that I won't even bother to try. So, but seriously, welcome back. What made you decide to come home?
Well, I had been away working in New Orleans and Austin, as you mentioned. And during the pandemic, I was thinking about what I wanted to do next in my career. I was just really lucky to have great institutions to work for in two wonderful cities, and just was thinking through my next move. And during the pandemic, I think we all had a little bit of extra time to think and reflect. And there was a couple weeks in July of 2020 that I was able to come home to Mississippi, which I had not been able to do for a long stint of time just because of work over the past however many years. And so I was able to come to Jackson. I went to Oxford, went down to Laurel, I have a sister there. Saw some friends in other small towns, and just really was reminded of how much cultural heritage we have in the city. And I was visiting our friends at the museums in those cities, Lauren Rogers, Mississippi Museum of Art, Museum, where I used to work. And I've kept up with everybody over the years, and just really felt call home for the first time in a long time. And it surprised me probably more than anyone else. But, it was really, I paid attention to that calling. I paid attention to the timing, and then sure enough, the next week I got a call that Malcolm White was retiring, and this job came open. And so thankfully, a few people called me to ask if I would apply, to let me know it was available, and I went through the process. And so very, very grateful to be here.
Yeah, and they hired you. Go figure. So
they did.
Good. That's a good thing. You have a good board to work with too, don't you?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. That makes it easy. And it's so I got to go ahead and ask this question to you up front. It's why should the government pay for art? No, I know
Well,
you get that one all the time. I mean, that one's always, you usually see that in the letters of the editor.
absolutely. So there's a couple of reasons. I mean, one, art is a way that humans express themselves. So whether it's through writing, through painting, theater, dance, this is how we communicate on a whole different level. We are able to learn so much from each other. We're able to learn from history. We're able to express our own identities, our own stories, and then also gain a lot of understanding from what we're seeing, what we're viewing. It allows for a lot of discussion to happen that is hard, especially sometimes in Mississippi and in the South, really all over right now, just having discussions and trying to see another perspective. Um, and also seeing oneself in another, just understanding that at the core of it, we're all humans. We express, we create, we live, we breathe the same air. And so I think that the government should support the arts because it's essential to the way that we think and interact as a society. I also see that the arts, especially in Mississippi, contribute so much to our identity. Many people don't know much about Mississippi other than that B.B. King is from here. The blues came from here. Faith Hill, Faulkner, Eudora Welty. Our biggest export is the arts. The arts also draw a lot of tourists in. We're internationally known as a very cultural and authentic cultural state. And so for all of those reasons, I think it's really important that the government continues to support the arts and continues to promote what is going well and what is so positive in our state.
I tell you, you look at the work that was done during the Great Depression, the WPA work, and the murals that they created and everything else. Or if you sit down with Bill Ferris and talk a little bit about his journeys and the stories that he's told throughout the years. And then, like I said, you touched on, I think, one of the most important things is that really, truly, art is a natural resource here in Mississippi.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it also, in the festivals that we're able to support, the museums that we're able to support, the ballets, the theaters, that also gives our citizens space and community space and reasons to live where they live. It gives them opportunities to interact and have some civic pride around their small towns or small communities. And as we know, with population loss, the recent report, that arts are needed now more than ever. That's what people look for in cities and towns when they're deciding where to move or where they're going to stay.
A few years ago, I was up for a job in another state, and I went for the interview, and it was a perfectly nice town. I'm not going to throw the town under the bus. And they had a great art museum, but the art museum was static. It was art from maybe at the latest in the 30s, 1930s. And, I come back here to Mississippi where we have a really unique thing here where it seems like all the artists, and I'm not even going to consider myself an artist per se. I do a lot of different things, but just the fact that I can know, Bill Dunlap or Wyatt Waters, or I can hang out with, Greg Isles, or, we have a community here that is so living and breathing. I would think that you would want to do everything you can to keep it alive.
Absolutely. And, the more I'm able to travel around the state and learn more, meet more writers and artists, it's just incredible. It really is. And, and I now hear from arts councils and real estate agents that, real estate agents are taking their new university professors or people thinking are looking to move to the town to the art cultural institutions, to the big murals that are popping up all over the state. That's what's drawing people into communities. And so I think that's really exciting.
I see what you did there, drawing people in there. That's good. Oh goodness, sorry. That's about the level of my humor today. I apologize. I'll go back to sleep now.
We'll take it.
Thank you. You do have an incredibly cool job in the sense that you do get to travel the state, and I always tell people you can't understand Mississippi driving from your house to your office. You kind of have to get
Absolutely.
out and go out. So on that,
it's very varied, and I was, lucky enough that in undergrad in Oxford, I was actually able to travel around that region a good bit. I was working at the University Museum, and that's when I really fell in love with that part of the state, just the hill country and Water Valley and Taylor and Holly Spring, all the little communities and towns up there. So it's just very varied and interesting.
I shouldn't even bring it up. I'm having a brain moment. I interviewed him for Conversations on the TV show. He did the book about the photographs that he took in North Mississippi above Sardis Lake and so forth. What's his name? Ford? Was the last name Ford? I think. Anyway, he lived in Oxford in the 70s and he went around. And like you said,
cool. I can't think of it right now, but we'll look it up.
It's somewhere in my house. It was a good book, and they did a documentary on it anyway. But like you said, it's so fascinating. He went around then, and then he came back, and it was like it looked the same, except there was Dollar Generals every 55 feet. That sort of thing. So on that, right. You touched on the pandemic and how we're all kind of sitting around thinking about our futures and so forth. I have to admit, I've done that too. I thought about maybe going to truck driving school. This pandemic has done that. It's just given us time to think about what's important, especially with all the bad news that we're getting. It's been tough on artists, really tough on artists, and particularly those who perform for a living a little bit. What are some things that the Mississippi Arts Commission have done to help out with artists to be able to get them through this pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. It has been very difficult for artists and arts organizations. So the most practical thing that we've done is through the CARES funding last year, we were able to give out almost $600,000 to organizations and to individual artists. And through the American Rescue Plan funds, we just actually released a press release 30 minutes ago, and we will be giving out an additional $800,000 throughout the state. So practically speaking, we're always, trying to make sure that we're on top of federal funding opportunities for our artists and artist communities. And then we're also creating, like everyone else over the past year, we didn't stop our normal convenings, our professional development opportunities, our networking opportunities. We just moved it all to virtual platforms. Yeah. And of course, we're continuing to do our weekly Mississippi Arts Hour on MPB and promoting artists through our social media channels, just doing everything that we can think of to continue to help just artists get their message out and understand what they can be doing to help themselves and gain new audiences during this time.
Hey, by the way, I do this little show here called Mississippi Stories. So if y'all ever want to throw a few names my way, I would love to, because the thing is, I love talking to artists and to writers, and A, because obviously they're natural born storytellers, but B, too, to get where you want to get in art, you have to have a certain degree of grit, and Absolutely. Resilience and so forth. So it always usually makes for a good story. Y'all do a lot of work with schools too. And I've, like I said, my wife's an elementary school teacher and art teacher, and I don't know how she does it. I have patience of Job, I tell you, but it's really neat. The whole arts program that y'all have put together, and that the way to be able to teach arts and make into like math and to English, and to be able to, because what it does, it just makes kids really enjoy math and English that much more, but also helps them engage both sides of their brain.
Right. And it's so important, of course, we're an arts commission and we believe in the power of arts for art's sake, but arts integration into other subject matter, helping especially children think critically rather than just memorization and recitation, really just helps with their ability to understand what they're learning. And everyone, as we know, learns in different ways. And so we've seen just really incredible, true, factual data come from our Mississippi Whole Schools program that arts integration really does raise math and science scores in these schools. And it's just really incredible to see. And we're actually working on some proposals now to grow that program with some additional, hopefully with some either additional American Rescue Plan funds from the state or funds through this upcoming legislative session. We just really want to help expand this program as much as possible because we see how it can help. It's very practical, hands-on application in our public school system, integrated into what children are already learning every day. And we all know that, learning loss over the pandemic is a huge concern for everybody. So
definitely, you obviously you've got the great museum background. You hit the ground running when you hit here. Talk a little bit about how you get when you get a job like this, obviously, is there a playbook that you jump into and you can go? You've got a great staff there. Talk about when you move into a new job like that, how do you hit the ground going?
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely a few different levels. So, one with the Arts Commission, it's been around since the 60s. So that's great. It's an incredible state agency. We have great staff. Some have been here for 23 years. So in that sense, there's a lot that is pretty standard to any state agency. However, with any job, especially an executive director statewide position, networking and making sure that you get out into the communities around the state, meet with other leaders, connect with legislators, connect with our lieutenant governor and governor's office. All of that is just so incredibly important, just to make sure that the arts have a voice at the table, that everyone around the state understands that our agency takes our job seriously, and we feel a personal and very rewarding responsibility to carry the arts on throughout our state, continue to ensure that it's funded, to continue to ensure that we're connecting with artists individually, connecting them to other artists, connecting them with job opportunities, and then also just continually helping to fund our arts organizations throughout the state, and helping promote them to both our local communities and tourists. So there's a lot of different levels to the job, and but it's what I love to do, and that's the most important thing, is that this is something that's truly my personal passion. And so it's easy to jump in that sense and get excited about promoting and sharing the arts in my home state.
You started, like I said, we were, I guess, really going into the first big wave that we had on the pandemic, and now we're in the middle of Delta and everything. But I mean, we have the vaccine and things are starting to open up a little bit more. Talk about where you think you're going to go in the next year with the Arts Commission, and you think things are going to open up more, or are y'all planning to do that?
We're like everyone else, we're tracking the cases as closely as possible. So
you got Dr. Dobbs on speed dial,
Yeah, it's just impossible to know. But we're doing a mix of things. So one, we have pivoted a lot of programming virtually. So we've continued to have the Governor's Arts Awards, for example, both live streamed on MPB radio and television. And then we have pivoted our arts conference last year to digital, and many other convenings and gatherings, professional development opportunities for artists and arts organizations. And we are hoping, we're planning right now a program at the Eco Shed in Jackson in October. And, we're really starting to think about other needs of the state and other needs of creatives in the state. And so we're about to launch a big mental health initiative, because we truly understand and see the need anywhere right now after the year and a half that we've had. But especially for our artists and creatives, as you mentioned, they've lost so much over the past year. They've lost community, they've lost ability to platforms to sell, they've lost audiences. And so it's just taken a toll, and we want to ensure we're doing everything that we can to help encourage these artists, help them, like I said earlier, practically through, of course, monetary help and grants, but then also emotionally, and with their ability, their lifestyle, with their ability to hopefully be able to stay in Mississippi and continue to create and continue to make our communities places worth living, and make our state proud. So that's a huge initiative that we'll be launching over the next month, and it will really permeate everything that we're doing.
Just out of curiosity, like you said, and I agree with you 100% about the mental health component on this, because it's like, number one, I think if you have great soil, I always talk about the brain being great soil. If it can grow great crops, it can grow great weeds too. And it's like, there has been a lot to be depressed about a little bit. What are some of the things that y'all would do to be able to help somebody? You say, I'm an artist that, honestly, I'm kind of hitting a low spot, and I contact y'all and say, how can you help? How can you help?
Yeah, so one thing that we're doing is we're about to add some resources to our website for very low cost therapy. So through, for example, RTS, Reformed Theological Seminary in Jackson, their graduate students are able to offer telehealth under supervision for only $15 an hour. And so that's something that's way more affordable than your typical, $175 entry into therapy, which is a barrier for the majority of our artists and even arts workers, creative workers throughout the state. And so that's one way. So we're offering a couple of resources like that. And then we're starting a panel series, one which will actually be at the Eco Shed in Jackson in October. And we're having a licensed therapist lead a discussion with 3 artists that do talk about and think through their own mental health through their art. And so they'll be talking about burnout, ways to think about art, ways to move through a period of grief or a period of depression through your art, ways to connect with the community. And so we'll have definitely a couple of those discussions. At that first discussion, it will be about mental health and burnout. And then we will take suggestions from the audience in a box to see what else do people need? What do they want to learn about? And then we're constantly trying to get feedback. So another way we're getting feedback right now is from our fellowship artists group. We are doing a big survey and just asking them what they need so that we can help better serve our artists throughout the state.
Oh, shoot. My editorial cartoons are me screaming in all caps all the time. My biggest fear. And it's so funny because you're right, man. I can go back. I've got a book of like the last 20 years of my stuff. And I'm sitting going through it going, well, yeah, bad day there. Phoned it in there. Yep. I was pretty much hating the world there. Yeah. But it is. Art therapy is for real. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And like you said, being a creative person can be so positive and a way to deal with things in really great ways. But then, sometimes your mind just gets in the way. We all struggle with that. And so, I think
that's happening to me in this interview.
I think even just having the conversation and normalizing the conversation is a big part of it as well. We feel like that's something that we can, at least help with. So.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, like I said, I'm really glad to hear that. I've got several musician friends that have just this last year has just beat them with a stick. It's just been awful because, I mean, they're out playing now, but now the vaccine, thankfully, they can get out and feel comfortable to do that. But it's been tough. But let's jump back to you for a minute since I'm jumping all over the place. You're from Mississippi originally?
Yes, I grew up in Jackson.
Okay, so you're from around here. That's important. Well, I mean, when I was like 2 or 3, I think my mom was an art teacher, so she, at least if nothing else, she figured out crayons will keep me quiet. And then she one day realized, oh, well, he can actually kind of draw, and I mean, she saved everything. So I've got I literally can see my artwork back when I was 2,
That's awesome.
She was a hoarder. It's awesome. I've got all just vats of my work.
That's great.
But so, I mean, I knew early on I wanted to do this. Did you show, artistic talent when you were young? Did you like, man, I want to paint. This is what I want to do.
Not necessarily. I will say I did grow up in a family. My grandmother was a watercolorist in Jackson. My aunt still is a watercolorist in Jackson. They studied with Janie Davis.
Oh yeah. Okay.
She's a part of the Gaddis group, and they show around Jackson and around the state. And they all studied with John Gaddis, who's a famous Mississippi watercolorist. And so I definitely grew up around artists and creative people. My mom is very interested in art, so we were always going to art museums, definitely always creating and reading as children. So it was always a part of my life. I didn't know that I wanted to pursue it in any serious way until I went to college at University of Mississippi and took a class with a friend, just kind of for fun, and just fell in love with it, and it never stopped. So
when you went into college, you didn't think you were going to get an art degree?
I was on a nutrition path.
Really? Uh-huh. Huh. Well, it's always good to have a fallback, I guess.
Yeah.
Obviously, things are working out for you just fine, so I'm not too worried about it. I don't think you're going to be putting together menus anytime soon. What's been the biggest challenge this year so far?
For us at the Arts Commission, just the heartache that we've seen around institutions and artists, musicians, dancers, I mean, even chefs, just
Yeah.
all these incredible creative people, things just starting and stopping and closing and opening. And it's just been hard for everyone. And, of course, we're just constantly trying to respond as much as possible, but we don't like to be stuck in our offices either, just
Right.
processing grants all day. We love going out into the community. We love convening people in person. We love to bring people together and promote our incredible story. So it's just been a change for everybody. But we're hopeful, that things will continue to improve. And in the meantime, we're just like everybody else, we're just doing the best that we can to keep up and keep serving our communities as best as possible.
I remember when Haley was governor, he really, honestly, it seemed like he really did a big push for the arts and to promote the arts. And it was, I got here in '96, so I got here in Fordyce, and obviously, Fordyce didn't really push it that much, if at all. And I don't, Musgrove did a little bit, but Haley really got it. He understood that was what made us interesting, what gave us some grit, what gave us some flavor, made us, it was just, and I think the moment it really hit me was when the B.B. King Museum opened, and I went and looked at the guest book, and everybody was from Europe.
Absolutely.
It's like, okay, yeah, we got something going here a little bit. And then Phil was in, I'm discussing governors and first names like I'm, because I make fun of them for a living. That's why, I guess. But I don't know. What's the current climate right now? Obviously you can't sit there and, trash them. I don't want you to for that, because I really, you seem like a nice person. Don't want you to lose your job. I'm just kidding. But what is the state of the arts in the legislature and in the governor and lieutenant governor's minds right now?
I think we've all had some good conversations recently, especially with their just offices, and they all understand that the arts can really help with some practical problems that we're facing right now. I've had good conversations with some legislatures and with our lieutenant governor's office around how the Arts Commission and arts funding can really help with population loss and learning loss. And so they've been really open to these discussions. And, Governor Reeves has been supportive through the Governor's Arts Awards. And his wife, Ely, has been really supportive through commissioning florists every week in the governor's mansion and trying to promote artists and her platform. So it's been positive. They did give us an increase in funding in this last year. And so we're hopeful that we'll be able to get another increase this next year. So I've been very grateful for just their willingness to listen and learn and work with us.
Yeah, I did a panel last week up at Starkville with Main Street, Mississippi. We talked about brain drain, obviously, and there was a time when there was some pushback against the thought that there actually existed, which is, you obviously left, but you came back. So, but there is, and I've got kids. I've got 21-year, 18-year-old, and a lot of times they think that they have to leave Mississippi to reach. So it would be nice if, like, for instance, our writers and our people that want to get into movies don't have to go to Atlanta. They can go to Natchez, which Tate Taylor's doing a great job down there right now. So on that, what are some of the bright spots artistically in the state that you think that are going to be things that you can really brag about in the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, so Meridian is really making a lot of pushes right now through their investment in the Children's Museum, through some renovation of their downtown. Of course, the Arts and Entertainment Center, the Max, is there. And so they've been working really hard. Hattiesburg's been working really hard to employ their artists through the pandemic, through public murals, through public painting of their electric boxes. And so I see these smaller towns really understanding how the arts can help with both keeping communities and families there through outdoor musical concerts, just having more beautiful spaces like public art, smaller coffee shops with art, etc. I think Laurel might be the best example, just their ability to get the television show. And of course, that all started with Aaron and Ben creating a space in Laurel, that was authentically created there before the TV show came. And so there, I feel like there really are a lot of bright spots. And, in Clarksdale, Griot Arts is really growing and expanding right now. That's a nonprofit, and they also run the Meraki Coffee Shop. So they're employing young, emerging individuals in Clarksdale and trying to help them understand how to run a coffee shop. So really practical knowledge and how to create their own business, how they can live in a small town and create something and continue to live there. So I feel like there's just all these little pockets everywhere that are popping up, which is really great to see. And there's also a couple of pushes around the state for entrepreneurship and really supporting young entrepreneurs and incubators. I know EcoShed's about to start, and Jackson's about to start an Accelerate Jackson program, which is coming up soon. And, so I think all of these little things will really help. And the more that we can just help convene and share the story and bring all these people together throughout the state, the stronger we'll be, just knowing that everyone is just not alone. They're all working towards the same goal.
That's the thing. And I think that goes back to, I was talking about the fact that we all seem to know each other and talk to each other. Maybe it's just, I don't know, just because I've done the radio TV thing for a long time. So I've been interviewing a lot of them. But it seems like whenever I feel like I need to call somebody with a question, I can usually find somebody who's done it in the arts community. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad to hear that y'all are helping with the entrepreneurial and the business side of it too, because mm-hmm. When you're a right brain and creative person, sometimes figuring out accounting and marketing and, product and how to get, your stuff out there. And, mm-hmm. and the thing is, you can be a successful artist and live, and Ben and Aaron have proved it. You can live anywhere,
Right. So. Absolutely. Yeah. And Oxford, Mississippi too, I will say,
they do.
Wayne Andrews and the Yakima Arts Council is doing really good practical incubators with creative businesses. And that's been really cool to see the success of that. Just very small program, but very successful. So
yeah, you're right about Hattiesburg. Marlowe, I was down judging the Miss Hospitality contest, which is funny. Just really honestly, me judging anything anything other than maybe a cook-off. That's the only thing I'm good at. But it was really so much fun because it was just such a great. But Marlo Dorsey took us around and showed us all the murals. Mm-hmm. Man, they got it going. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, they've made a real commitment in a very serious way to the arts in their community, and it's really paying off. It's great to see.
Yeah, especially you got a university right around the corner. It's kind of like, oh yeah, we got artists. That works perfectly on that. Well, I'm just trying to think. What other things have I missed that y'all do? Because every time I start studying a little bit about all the different things you do, I didn't know you did that. And I've been here 25 years. So, it's like y'all really do a lot of different things.
I feel the same way. I feel like I'm always learning
what we're doing. It's less dangerous for me not to know than you, but that's
No, it's so let's see. So one other really incredible resource that we offer is the artist teaching rosters on our website.
Yeah.
So when any, school or municipality or nonprofit wants to hire an artist for a program in their community, for a workshop, for any age, they can go on our website, find an artist they'd like to work with, and then they can apply for a grant through the Mississippi Arts Commission in order to pay that artist. So we really try to be holistic in the way that we support both organizations and artists throughout the state to ensure that artists are seen and hired, but then also that organizations have the funds to hire them. And so I feel like that's another really important resource that not everybody knows about.
That's absolutely huge. Especially from the artist perspective too, because that's good money, and B, you're making contacts and connections with people in the community out doing that too. And also you're inspiring kids. Cause I don't know about you. Well, you just said it, but I was inspired by artists when I was a kid too. It's
Absolutely.
Like, I met this guy he drew editorial cartoons for the Channel 2 over in Atlanta. And he'd put them on this giant board and they'd run the camera around the board to make it look animated. His name was Bill Daniel. And he later went on, he was the first graphic artist for the Weather Channel. So he didn't do the landmass thing, but that was his thing, was he did that. And so I met him and I thought, let me back up here. You get paid to do this for a living. That is incredibly cool. And I remember not long after that, I was like, my dad, I want to be a cartoonist. I'm going to, 8 years old. My dad's like, yeah, we'll keep your room ready for you when you get back to college, But,
right.
But that is cool that y'all do that on being able to get people out in the community. Because I think it's good for the community too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, and there are so many jobs in the arts, and we're working on helping share that story as well, because I believe Mississippi employs about 26,000 people in the creative industries through arts organizations, nonprofits, just different types of groups throughout the state, individual artists. And there's just so many things that people can do. Like even in an art museum, there's just so many different ways that individuals can work with the arts, whether it's through databases or communications or teaching art or giving tours, working in gift shops. I just feel like there's so many different interesting opportunities to connect with creative work. That's not always as obvious as just, being an artist. So
well, I'm writing these down because this might be helpful in case everything kind of falls apart. So, the day's young. It could potentially happen a little bit. I like that though. I like the thought that it's not just, me being a starving artist living under a bridge painting, which is probably where I would live if I had to rely on my painting, but I still do that a little bit. Well, how many staff? You mentioned you've had some staff members been there 23 years. How big is the Mississippi Arts Commission?
We have 11 full-time staff, and then we have about probably 15 contractors that work in different areas of the state, mostly with our whole schools program.
I went up to the Tennessee Arts Commission, Governor's Arts Award, the Tennessee Governor's Arts Award a couple years ago. A friend of mine's a cartoonist up in Knoxville. He got one, which I thought was cool. But I'm looking around. Well, he did it for 60 years. Okay, so he earned it. He's just a huge influence in Knoxville. But there was Little Richard and Brenda Lee. It was kind of cool. But I was just kind of looking around, going, yeah, our Governor Arts Award are better.
Thank you.
Even though it was my friend, I was just like, yeah, throwing some shade on him. I was like, yeah, we get. But that's the thing. I love the Governor's Arts Awards every year because even if there's like somebody I don't know per se, I see their work and it just blows me away.
Yeah, that is such an important program, and I'm glad that you mentioned it because it is a way, of course, for us to honor incredible Mississippians, people that have contributed to both our state creative legacy, but then also a lot of times it's our national or international creative legacy. And then it's also so inspiring, and people get to learn more about these individuals that they may not know about. There's definitely always somebody that I am discovering as we go through. Right now we're going through all the nominations for this year, and I've learned so much about people that I had no idea about. And we also hope that through promoting the awards, promoting the awardees, and sharing their stories, that future generations are inspired to understand that they can be from here, that they can create incredible careers, that they can have amazing, enriching lives through the arts and be from Mississippi. So
that's right.
Full circle.
I did a kid's book a few years ago about a little dog, and one of the pages, he's a writer, and I had the whole bookshelf was nothing but Mississippi authors.
Wow.
And so when I go, I'll do the slideshow with the kids and show them some of the pages. It's an A through Z, they can dream it kind of book. And I stopped there and it's like, you live in the greatest state in the world to be creative. You live in Mississippi because we have great stories here and we have great storytellers, and you just have to believe you can do it. And it sounds like that's really kind of what the Mississippi Arts Commission does, is kind of help an artist figure out, what, you can do it and you can do it here.
Absolutely. And, another way we do that, which I love, is through our writers trail, which is actual physical markers throughout the state.
Yeah.
And I love that program because the physicality of putting a marker in a writer's hometown is just so visually compelling, because you can see physically where they lived, how that space, influenced their work. In my neighborhood of Belhaven and Jackson, we have Eudora Welty's marker, and then of course her house. And then we just actually installed a Richard Ford marker in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And the list just goes on and on. And so that's another just really interesting way we were able to share those stories. And again, it's all over the state. There's never a concentration in one area or another. And that's the really cool part about it as well.
I know, you look at a map of where all the dots are, and that on the Blues Trail and on the, the music, you just look, it's like, wow, it's like pretty much all over the place. I really hated that the book festival didn't make it this year just because of Delta. It's like, oh, so cool.
Very sad. Yeah. It's such an important part of the story of Mississippi too, just the literary aspect. I mean, it's just incredible, truly. I'm always discovering writers that I didn't know about that are from Mississippi, and it's great. I just got to interview Kiese Lehman for the Arts Hour recently, and that was just fascinating. So good.
How are you enjoying doing that, by the way, the Arts Hour?
Oh, I love it. I learned just so much from Mississippians, both in and outside of the state. So probably like you just enjoy learning more about Mississippi and people's stories.
Oh, that's why I started doing all this. You know, I mean, doing cartoons is great. I can go sit in a room by myself and do cartoons all day long. It's fantastic. But when I get to talk to people like you right now, it's like, this is too much fun. And, like I said, I feel like that I owe Mississippi something because it's given me an awful lot in the last 25 years.
That's great.
If I show it off a little bit, and some really cool things. Like I said, the book festival, to me, the Author's Lounge is the most amazing place in the universe, because you go in there and there's Dunlap here, there's Richard Ford over there, you just like, oh, there's Angie Thomas walking through, and it's just like, and I'm sitting there eating Danishes like there's no tomorrow because they're free. But it's just so amazing. And you think, well, yeah, they're all from Mississippi.
It's incredible.
You got a good job. So, so do you ever wake up going, yeah, okay, I like this. This has turned out okay.
Every day. I really do. I'm very, very grateful. It's a huge platform and just an opportunity that I'm just pleased to be able to do.
See, Sarah, that was the gotcha question. I was kind of hoping you say, no, really, honestly, I hate every second of this. It's like dog vomit. It's terrible. But no, you're not doing that. That's good.
I have my Marie Hull painting back there in my office.
I see that.
Life is good. Yeah, we have a Dunlap. See on this wall.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's...
Bill's funny. I got stuck next to him at the author's tent signing books, and Angie was like right across from us. And she had a line that ran to pretty much, Vicksburg, and Bill and I are just sitting there laughing because, we'll have one or two people come by, and buy a couple of our books. And Angie's just running them through like crazy. And Bill's like, I should have brought something to drink, really. Marie Hull, the show they had, what was that, a couple of years ago? They had her show here. Yeah, Bruce curated that.
That's right.
Yeah. Bruce Livingston, which, by the way, I love Bruce. I interviewed him for conversations at the art museum, and we talked about the show and everything. Her range in her lifetime was just off the charts. But I felt like the work that she did during the Depression, she was painting people of color. It was, and you just caught you talk about sharecropper eyes.
Yeah.
Those paintings were just, there was no soul there. You could tell how people were suffering. I just love her. I think she's one of my favorites.
Yeah, she captured humanity, just at its core through a lot of her portraiture. And then later through her abstract work later in life, just pure emotion and atmosphere and through color. And she was very prolific, and, also lived in Belhaven in the neighborhood of Belhaven. So.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. That's where you grew up then.
I grew up more in Northeast Jackson, but I bought a house in Belhaven when I moved back in November.
Oh, very cool. Very nice. So you don't have a long commute. That's important.
Yeah, it's pretty ideal.
Yeah, you might bust an axle on the way, but other than that, not too bad.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Sarah, I'm respectful of your time. I'm trying to think, is there anything I've missed, of what y'all do and your services and so forth? I'm about to say I meant to follow up on this when you're talking about, where artists can get people that can hire artists and everything. How do artists get into your system?
So they can apply through the website for the artist roster, and or they can just email us and we can guide them through how to get on the website on the artist roster. And then we also have, of course, our fellowship opportunity every year, which is $5,000 cash award.
Nice.
For artists, and artists can apply every year. We award them every 2 years, and it's both cash award and also a distinction, and they're able to convene together. We make sure that we feature them on our social media, on our website, on our Mississippi Arts Hour, and through other avenues. So we're really just promoting stellar artists that are working in Mississippi now. And so that's, anyone from Ashley Coleman, who's in Ackerman, incredible photographer, to Lawson King, who's a sculptor in the Delta. I mean, it just is really wide ranging, and just really interesting to see the depth and breadth of work throughout the state. And then also another good way to see that I will mention is at the Mississippi Museum of Art right now. The Mississippi Invitational is up, and that's, you can see 43 contemporary artists that are living and working in Mississippi, and just what the talent that they have, the wide range of mediums and subject matter. And it's just really encouraging to see. So another program that we were able to do in August is that we partnered with 8 visual art museums throughout the state to have free August Museum Month to really promote both visitors outside of the state and then people inside of the state to travel around and see their art museums again, just to be reminded of the incredible resources that we have just in every part of the state. And so that was really cool to just track and see, how many visitors were traveling, getting into new communities, revisiting their favorite local art museums. So, we'll do a lot of fun initiatives like that, which is really neat.
I remember the first time I went to the Lauren Rogers Museum, I was just like, okay, this is like a really great museum with some really important pieces in a small town. How did and then there was a lot of timber money and so forth at the time, and you understand how that happened, but we are so spoiled here and we just don't even know it.
It's great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I was glad when they built, and I say the new museum, it's almost like saying the new Capitol, because it's only been around since 1903. But I mean, what was it, 2006 they opened it? Anyway, when they were able to get the space and get the Mississippi local paintings out of the vault and hang them on the walls, I mean, that was just a red letter day. I just thought that was fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's an easy way to visually see just the historic talent in the state and just different periods of the state as well, which is cool. Even when Marie Hull and Dusty Bonjay, Theodore Hamlet were working in Mississippi in the early 1900s, they were showing in New York, and that's incredible. Early to mid 1900s. There's just there's always been a abundance of talent and connectivity, even when it wasn't easy.
Yeah. So what you're saying, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. All right, that's good. Never mind. I think there might be a copyright.
But only here.
Look, Sarah, I appreciate it. Like I said, my offer stands. If there's anybody you can, throw it my way. I'll have this conversation with other artists because I would love to get a platform because, like I said, I feel like the state's given me a ton, but I'd like to be able to give that back to other artists as well. So.
Great. Well, I have some ideas for you.
Oh, look at you on top of things. Thank you already. Look, I enjoyed this. This was fun.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on, and thank you for all you do. In the state.
I'm not sure what I do, but thank you. I appreciate you appreciating it. Anyway, Sarah, take care. Thank you, and good luck. Because I know the legislative session is starting up again, so you'll get to spend a little Capitol time. That'll be fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of Mississippi Stories. Make sure to subscribe to the Mississippi Today YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified every time a new video uploads.